didn't plan this like this, but I got this on sale for $1 yesterday, and I read it and thought it would make a good subject for review. And warning, there could be rants coming up. But this is The Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 21, published in 1987. I never read it at the time because this is a few years before my time. I was 2 when this was published, so yeah. So yeah, this is the wedding issue and the thing that was completely undone by one more day. Jim Shooter wrote it and was the editor-in-chief on this book. Stan Lee presents The Amazing Spider-Man. Sirens scream in the summer heat, echoing down cracked bricks, always tumbling between buildings that gasp and hold the sounds like an old familiar friend. For this is New York City, a town that's seen it all. Twice. Lots of squad cars moving fast. Must be something big. And something big is exactly what the Amazing Spider-Man is looking for. Yeah, in case you didn't notice yet, he's still in the black costume. Unlike in every TV show or movie version that there's been, Peter's time in the black costume was not an overnight thing that just led to that was just a stepping stone to Venom, and that was over like that. No, it was something that was the new normal for years, and we didn't see signs of any trouble from the costume for a long time. He first donned it in Secret Wars back in 1985, and here he is still wearing it in the wedding issue in 1987. A bunch of cops come and then suddenly they get shocked, and then we see by who. That should teach those public servants to keep their distance. Arnold, my shirt. Here you go, boss. Gotta be careful. One touch from his bare hands would fry me like a strip of bacon. So far, so good. The plan to have you boys rescue me from the non-conductive police van worked perfectly. And now I'm free, and the world will once again know the power of Electro. Come, there's havoc to be wrought. And when you see Electro, bring on havoc. And Electro is one of those characters that I've never understood why he isn't used more, or why he seems to be on the B list so far as villains go. I mean, even when I was a kid, I was like, wait a second. He can shoot electricity, and he can pretty much send electricity through anything. Through anything that will conduct electricity. Yeah, Spider-Man sometimes takes about with water, but still, that makes him one of the most powerful villains, and being able to control electricity should make him one of the most powerful villains in the universe. So, yeah, the fact that he's always on the B list has been something that's always puzzled me. I kind of liked what they did in the 90s cartoon, where where they didn't have the rights to use him because he was supposed to be in the James Cameron movie that was supposed to come out before that animated series even started, so they didn't have the rights until the last season of the show. So then they decided to make him something big, and so he was the ultimate Nazi super weapon the Red Skull was after, and it's like that's more along the lines of the level of threat I like to see Electro be in the future. Not get him off the B list, start using him to his full potential, which hasn't happened yet. Freeze, mister, or I swear I'll drop you where you stand. You mean like this? The boss is fast, quick as lightning, but he's gotten a little sloppy. This one's still alive. Guess that's what he keeps us around for. Huh? What the? Hey, what happened to Eddie? And then we go to a Robotech ad. There's actually a role playing game which I didn't know. That's interesting. I know it's divisive for anime fans, but I kind of like Robotech, and I think it's an example of the people behind it going, "Hey, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade." I mean, they were given the impossible task of, "Oh yeah, we got footage from these 3 different Japanese cartoons. The only thing they have in common was that they were made by the same company who sold their footage to us. These 3 completely separate cartoons. We want you to turn them into one cartoon so that we can sell it in a syndication package." So I think the people behind it did given the restrictions they were under, I think they did a pretty good job, and I enjoy Robotech for what it is. This is definitely something I could have seen myself beaten to. Just you know, I never played tabletop role playing games, but I could see giving this one a try. I kind of like science fiction more than fantasy anyway, so yeah. Oh, so of course Spider-Man got in the way. I would say he's all tied up, but you've probably heard that one before. Yeah, about 1 billion times in Spider-Man by this point, I would bet. Spider-Man, kill him! I have to say, the crooks of New York City after all these years have to be some of the most optimistic people on Earth, since they're always thinking that they're going to take down Spider-Man or Captain America or someone or Thor with their guns, and it's like, really? Really? Where 2,000 other crooks and supervillains failed, you think you're going to be the one to get it right this time? And for people who complained about the product placement in Man of Steel, well, there's some here for Howard Johnson's. Uh-oh, spider sense tingling, warning me of danger. And just in time, Shazak! Shazak. So Spider-Man jumps out of the way and, whoa, that guy's Duracells ever run down? You're pretty impressive against flesh and blood, Sparky. But let's see how you do against solid steel. That well, huh? Guess I better try to tire you out then. The only thing I'll tire of, Warcrawler, is your interference. Therefore, it shall stop. Now! Oh no, Electro's bolts knocked down that wall, and it's falling straight towards these pedestrians. When are pedestrians going to learn to leave the streets? This is a thing in all comic books. You think by now, with heroes being a thing that's existed since the 40s in Marvel's universe, they'd learn to get out of the way when a supervillain fight breaks out. I mean, really. So Spider-Man uses the wall to block Electro's blast. He then throws a manhole cover into a fire hydrant, and it shorts out Electro. Hold it! Stay right where you are! Oh, do give me a break. I said, cool it, Hepburn. The guy saved some lives. Let him go. Huh, the cop's using some brains this time. Love to see that on this season of Flash, but whatever. Glad I didn't have to stick around. My webbing dissolves after an hour or so, and my automatic camera couldn't survive a fall from this height. I'll just snap a few follow-up shots to go with the action stuff, and then try to find something else for Spider-Man to get involved in. The more pics I sell to the Daily Bugle, the better. After all, money's real important when a fellow's just a couple of days from getting married. So yeah, that's the reason he's rushing around doing things, even bit quickly for him, because be for Peter because he wants to get as much money as possible together before he and MJ get married. He then returns to his apartment and changes back into Peter Parker. That was quite a workout. Wish I had time for a run or even a nap. But I better settle for a quick glass of cow juice and a couple of aspirin. Do people really call milk cow juice? Was that a thing in the 80s? I've never heard it called that before in my life. Hi, Tiger. I hear someone's had a busy day. Spider-Man's been all on the newscast all afternoon. Hi, MJ. Here, let me get those for you. Missed you. Missed you too. So what's with the heroic activity, hero? Got bored when MJ's not around? No, it just makes me feel good to help other people. Besides, selling Spidey photos is how I make a living. Yeah, I have to say, I like what J. Michael Straczynski did in the early 2000s, making the photos just a side job and making Peter a teacher. It makes sense for his character. And because the photos can't be a reliable income, plus it allows Peter to use his natural acumen for science. So, yeah. You know, I've been meaning to ask, how does that stuffy camera of yours know when to shoot? How come it doesn't just take pictures of brick walls? And MJ once again does the job of asking the question I had as a kid. Of course, I never read this issue as a kid, so I spent my whole childhood with that very question. How come the camera that was supposed to be on a timer always just happens to snap good pictures of Spider-Man? Sometimes it does. If I move too fast, there's a microtransmitter in my belt buckle. Whenever it and I pass in front of the lens, a radio signal triggers the shutter. Neat. Speaking of neat, we may have a problem. I don't know if this apartment is going to be big enough for us and our clothes. Really? Maybe we can throw something out. How about that replica of your old costume, the one you got in East Berlin? I kind of like the red and blues, but since you don't use them anymore... Yeah, much to the fans' disappointment. But thankfully he keeps that around. Not sure why the communists of East Berlin were keeping an old Spider-Man costume, as again, I guess it was covered in an event called Spider-Man vs. Wolverine #1. And it turns out he has to call Aunt May and Aunt Emma because they have to tell them that they're getting married. Not sure if it's the best planned wedding of all time, since but yeah, but then something happens. But then MJ has to leave for a shoot, and she says Calvin needs her. I guess she's talking about Calvin Klein, and he even sent a limo, which disturbs Peter a little, because he starts thinking about how he and MJ comes from different worlds financially at this point. MJ is a very successful model who also has been offered acting gigs, and he's just a part-time photographer. Again, another reason why I like having a solid income with being a teacher. That, and it matures him, and here's the thing, even before Straczynski did it, they had him volunteering at a teaching program on the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s, and that always made so much sense to me as a kid. It was like, oh yeah, he's really smart with science, he should be teaching science. I mean, you know, you don't understand money completely as a kid, but that's one of the things you think. So I guess Robbie's running the show of getting the pictures from him at this point, and he's not having to be yelled at by Jameson each time. And he tells it, and he tells that he sold too many Spider-Man pictures of them, but people are wondering why Spider-Man is waging this one-man war on crime, so there are still sales in it. He then asks Peter to stay as he takes him to the employee lunchroom, where there's a surprise party for his, because Peter's getting married, and then he said, "Present, the boys and I got you this." Uh-huh. Then Jameson walks into the room. If anything can kill the mood at a party, it's J. Jonah Jameson. I know you don't approve of parties on company time, Jonah, but nonsense. I may be a publisher, but I'm not an ogre. Peter, my boy, you've come a long way since I took you under my wing, and I'm proud of you. Darn proud. Hey, what's gotten into old Flintheart? I don't know, but I hope it stays. Hey, I've got 2 words of advice for you, son. Be sure, marriage is a mighty big step. Once you say I do, there's no turning back. Comprende? Yes, Jonah Jameson. Let's go over that last quote again. Once you say I do, there's no turning back. Comprende? I'll tell you someone who didn't comprende. Joe Quesada. I'd like to sometimes I wish I owned a copy of One More Day, and I hadn't thrown it out after I balled it, because I'd like to burn it. No, I'd like to stab it with a sword and then burn it. No, I'd like to strangle Quesada into unconsciousness, then stab him with the sword, then burn the comic on top of him. Really sure I'm ready for it. And now Peter's just wondering about if he's really ready, because not because he and MJ aren't in love. They've made that very clear that they are ready, but his sense of responsibility and the fact that Peter is what I like to call a professional guilt collector, and that if something goes wrong, he'll always feel guilty about it, even if it's not his fault or if there wasn't anything he could do. So you combine those two traits, and he's going to be constantly second-guessing himself about whether he's doing the right thing or the selfish thing. And it's like, Robbie gets called away, and he says, before I go, Jonah, I'm sure you'll want to sign this bonus check to help Peter with his wedding. Check? What check? And those are the magic words to kill Jameson getting involved with any party or being proud of someone. Check. But one from all of us. Huh. You say that the writers at Marvel tended to make Jameson a caricature of whoever the editor-in-chief was at the time, and take all their little frustrations that they had with their bosses out by making Jameson a straw man for them. I don't see it. I don't know what they're talking about. I can't see any of that. I mean, really. If you're reading too much into things if you see any of that here. Yes, of course. Here you go, Peter. Enjoy. Now I better see about processing those vouchers. I know every little bit will help. Thanks, Robbie. Listen, Jonah, I know this wasn't your idea. Maybe you better take the check back. That's all right, Parker. Keep it. Yeah, this seems magnanimous of Jameson. I'll find some other way to make up the expense difference. And so later, after much cake and punch has been consumed, so long, folks. Gotta go make a very special payment. Thank you. Thanks again, really. Oh, Miss Hotchkiss? Okay, there's a character that didn't last, because I don't remember her ever being in the 90s. Is that really her name? Do remember to take down the names of everyone here, won't you? I'd hate to dock someone who didn't attend. And now we know why Jameson was willing to give up that check. He'll probably save more money by docking the pay of everyone at the party than he did on the check. Yeah, again, I can't see the writers taking out their frustration. Peter has a bit of an awkward run-in with Betty Brant, whose husband died weeks before, and he used to, and unlike what they show in the movies or the cartoons, he did used to date her back in the day. And here's the thing that's important to know going forward with this story, is that, yeah, over 2 decades have passed since he became Spider-Man in real time, but in story time, as far as I can tell, it's only been about 5 to 7 years. And it's only been 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 since Gwen, at the most, since Gwen Stacy died. And that hangs over the rest of this story. In case you haven't figured it out, it's more of a character piece at this point than it is an action comic, which is fine once in a while. A restless night passes for Peter Parker, and as lunchtime rolls around the next day, you're just in time, Peter. Pasta's ready. Did you bring the wine? No, but I brought the ice. Oh, Peter! Thought we were gonna get the ring together. I mean, I did help pick it out, I know, but I got a bonus from the bugle, and the jeweler was on the way, so you hand it to me when I'm elbow deep in linguine? That's about as romantic as heat rash. Really? Really? And then we see that, yeah, they almost do a famous movie scene, but they decide to be fair to Sam Raimi and let him have something iconic to put in his movie. And over dinner, he finds out, though, that some rich admirer, and it's like he finds out that he asks MJ if she's having second thoughts, and she says no. And then it rings, and she gets a call that she's that offering to take her to the south of France because some admirer from her in the fashion world, a wealthy guy no less, is trying to talk her out of getting married. So MJ gets a call from some designer who wanted her to be on a shoot on their wedding day, and then she has to go meet him. And he watches as yet again a limo is sent for her, and and while she seems happy, Peter's kind of worried that he's being selfish and asking her to give up too much because, well, that's who Peter Parker is. Life doesn't just kick Peter Parker when he's down. When life decides that it's had enough of kicking him when he's down, Peter Parker will kick himself while he's down till he has several broken ribs. Meanwhile, she meets with her designer, a black guy named Willie Smith. And as far as I could tell, Will Smith was not famous yet in '87. That's just from a brief Google search. But anyway, that just I don't know. That just tickled me. It's like so close. You came so close. Okay, he's in the wrong industry and everything, but you came so close to predicting that there would be a famous black guy named Will with this name. So close, Marvel. But it turns out he's in support of her getting married, which is fine. Who isn't is this stalkerish guy, because outside a creepy guy in a trench coat comes up. Excuse me, are you Mary Jane Watson? That depends. Who are you? I was told to give you this tape. You can listen to it in the Ferrari over there. Keys are in it. But what? Good day, miss. Well, that's creepy. What the heck? Worst that could happen, I could get arrested for attempted car theft, right? That's years in prison. That's pretty much the worst. I'll just pop the cassette in. Good morning, Mrs. Watson. So if you are listening to this, you're hooked. I knew I could talk sense into you. Bruce? Oh, for crying out loud. First on Superman the animated series, Bruce Wayne tries to break up Lois and Clark Kent. Now he's trying to break up Spider-Man and Mary Jane. What's wrong with him? Does he have plenty of women in his own comic? Come on. Check the glove box, baby. The tickets are for Paris. We could drive to the villa from there. Pick me up at the hotel on your way to the airport, okay? And you can keep the Ferrari. I've got another one. As always, should you or any member of your IAM force be captured, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Oh, Bruce, you'll never change. Still, it would be fun. Later, on a quiet suburban street in Queens. There's the house where I grew up, where Aunt May and Uncle Ben raised me like their own son. It hasn't changed a bit. And coming here is still like coming home. And so, a joke about Vanna White, now that Wheel of Fortune has been on for 30 years, and Vanna White must be about the same age Aunt May is supposed to be, and this shot hasn't really aged well. It's like Aunt May's been going for the family album. Wow, I haven't seen these pictures in years. And so Spider-Man goes. So Peter starts thinking about his life, and of course we get the standard issue recap of his life going up to this point. But when he sees Gwen Stacy, who he came very close to marrying before this happened, and this is what I meant when I said the fact that comics don't take place in real time is a huge part of what Peter's going through with this comic. It might seem like he's reluctant to get married at it, but the real thing that the real root of, when you get down to the root of it, it seems that since it's only been like 2 or 3 years in his time that this took place, that's enough time to move on. But when he gets to something like this, of course it's going to give him some conflicting feelings. And that's when MJ comes over with her Aunt Anna. Yeah, if your introduction to Spider-Man was the Sam Raimi movies, like a lot of people I know, this must confuse you a lot. Yeah, Mary Jane did not live with her abusive mother and father. It was her aunt Anna lived next door. She didn't live next door. She lived with her brief mother and father, but it was not next door. It was her Aunt Anna who was next door, and that's how they met. It's like, yeah. The Wild and Woolly Watson girls are here. Hey, MJ. Hello, Anna. And soon in a comfortable kitchen. The reason we asked you here is, well, Mary Jane and I have known each other a long time, and when two people know each other a long time, and they know each other real well, and what Mumblemouth here is trying to say, people, is that we're getting married. Wait. I just spotted something here. All their co-workers and half-remembered acquaintances knew they were getting married before their two closest living relatives? What on earth? What kind of ship are you running here, you two? I mean, good night. Good night. Oh, and just in case you wanted another smackdown of one more day, and proof that Aunt May would never approve of that deal, well, now look here, young man, you're a Parker, and you've got more gumption than anyone I know. You love that little girl, and you'll do what's right for her and you, and let the chips fall where they may. Yes, Aunt May, 20 years before the event, delivered a complete smackdown to that deal with the devil. And if Peter had been written with any backbone in this story, or if he had been written in character, there would have been a flashback. He would have been tempted by the deal with the devil, but then there would have been a flashback to this conversation, which again in storytime happened, what, 5 years before? Only 5 years before? And he would have known that deal with the devil, or Mephisto, or whatever you want to call a guy who looks like a goat with horns and has flames all around him and feeds all of people's unhappiness, was not what Aunt May wanted. Gah! I warned you, Verity Rants. But that just gives you some idea of just how good Jim Shooter is as a writer for Spider-Man. He manages to deliver smackdowns to arguments that nobody had any way of knowing would exist 20 years from there. Well, that was relatively painless. Want to share a D train back to the city? Not this time, Peter. I'm meeting a friend. I'll catch you later. Mary Jane then gets picked up by somebody who called Bruce, and in a Ferrari. This of course leads Peter to stew, especially when midnight comes. Yeah, that's usually not a good sign. 2 days before the wedding and that happens, usually not that good a sign. Of course, I have to wonder. And I think he just broke one of his expensive web shooters. Yeah, that tells you how he's feeling. Lucky I'm not the jealous type. Jealous type could get upset. So Mary comes in and, Mary, where were you? I mean, what are you doing here? I got a ride with a friend. Been walking around Manhattan the last few hours. Just walking? What do you do when you need to think? Well, usually I go somewhere private and quiet where no one can bother me. That sounds wonderful, Peter. Take me there. Well, okay. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Yeah, you probably should have mentioned this before actually doing it. I thought you meant a park or something. What would be more private than the top of the Empire State Building? Well, if Mary Jane suffers from my sense of vertigo or whatever you call it. When you're my fear of heights, pretty much anything would be preferable to this. The molten core of the earth would be preferable to this. On the outside, I'm not Fay Ray, you know. Ha! Back when people knew their classic movies and stars. And I'm not some big ape. I'm Peter. Do you really think I'd drop you or let you be hurt in any way? No, I guess I'm just a little surprised, that's all. So, what do you think about when you're up here? Life, the site, Times Square, Pan Am building, Brooklyn Bridge. Isn't that where Gwen... Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. I didn't mean to open old wounds. That's okay. That one's healed pretty well. Real well. Really. And this, to me, is a perfect example of what makes this story work. There are quiet moments in this, and it shows why Peter MJ's relationship works. She doesn't get jealous or accuse him of still being in love with Gwen Stacy. She knows that if Gwen Stacy hadn't died, he'd probably be married her, but that's the past. That doesn't mean that... And Jim Shooter is a smart enough writer to know that doesn't mean that Peter doesn't really love MJ. It just means life could have played out differently. All our lives could have played out differently, with one decision or another going some way. Not in the dramatic way the overly dramatic way they normally show in comic books, but still, it shows a depth understanding of human nature, and I like that. Guess that's enough thinking for one night. Take you home? Have to admit, this is a bigger kick than a crosstown bus or even a limo. But it is going to take some getting used to. Yeah, for starters, given the nighttime temperatures in New York, you may not want to wear a mini skirt going up, because that can, once you go up the top of the Empire State Building, that cannot be... I mean, I've been to the top of a building that's like half the size of the Empire State Building, and the wind up there was cold enough. I'm trying to imagine what it must feel like if you don't have warm pants on. Soon, don't forget, we have to pick up our marriage license tomorrow. Okay, good night. However, while Mary Jane Watson slips between the satin sheets, falling quickly to gentle slumber, Peter Parker finds sleep somewhat more elusive. His mind fixates, blocking on a single track, and like a stubborn dog with its jaw clamped around a bone it doesn't want to lose, and he won't let go. The past has cost him so much, and he can't help but wonder what price the future. And so the next day, Mary Jane calls him, and she talks about them getting there, and she's looking at the wedding dress the designer sent over, and she's really excited. Yeah, me too. For now, now after all night worrying about Gwen Stacy, thinking about what happened to Gwen Stacy, he's more worried than ever. So next, they go to get their marriage license, and soon, and Mary Jane's excited, and he gets it, but he's still worrying about it and whether or not the marriage will actually last. Peter, you self-sabotaging freak. Oh, no. You went through all this trouble only to self-sabotage yourself 20 years later. Why? Oh, I know. The most evil thing ever to touch comics. Editorial mandates. Editorial mandates need to be banned by a UN convention. They should be considered a war crime. Anyone who commits them should go before the Hague for trial. They are just the greatest evil ever inflicted on an artistic medium. And Joe Quesada can rot in prison for the rest of his life if they ever do pass that UN resolution. I don't care. Later at Mercy General, time for your shot, Mr. Johnson. Better bend over. Cute, Parker. How you doing? Yeah. Believe it or not, Peter Parker and Flash Thompson become friends. Yeah, you know, that guy who's normally only in a TV show or movie for 2 seconds to try and bust Peter's face. Not as well as you are, Flash. They told me downstairs you recovered from your bout with the Hobgoblin faster than anyone expected. Yeah, I'm not sure. The editor's notes. So yeah, it's about as helpful as a badly edited Wikipedia page. And since you're going to be released tomorrow, well, I'd like you to be my best man. Yeah, I heard you and MJ were finally tying a knot. I'd be honored, pal. Truly honored. And basically, did you see that scene about the bachelor party in the second Fantastic Four movie? They have that. But before tomorrow comes, tonight, and a superbly cooked meal that grows cold uneaten on Peter's plate. I've face costumed maniacs, hostile aliens, inhuman monsters, but nothing I've done has been as tough as this, as having to break Mary Jane's heart. Yeah. It seems that he's starting to think that she won't be safe if they're married. Mary Jane, I've been thinking a lot, and there's something I have to say. I just hope you'll understand. I've made a decision. It's about the wedding, and I don't think we should... The wedding! That reminds me. I know you're not supposed to see me in the gown, so I took a Polaroid snap of it. Of the gown itself. Isn't it something? Wow, that is gorgeous. I'm going to be so beautiful for you. I'll make you so proud you'll want to bust. Almost as proud as I am of you. Gosh, I'm sorry, Peter. I interrupted, didn't I? What were you going to say? Oh well, yes. Flash Thompson's throwing me a bachelor party for tomorrow. Is that all? Heck, some of my friends are throwing me a bash tomorrow night too. Isn't it funny how things work out? Yeah, hilarious. The meal continues. Though for Peter Parker, who returns to a comfortless apartment to pace the floor and ceiling again, it seems that the night will never end. Again, this makes it clear nothing is being forced on Mary Jane, and Peter's worry come completely from the safety perspective. For all the people who... I've heard people argue that one more day had to happen because neither one of them wanted to get married. No, now that I'm actually reading this book, no. All those seem to be either the normal jitters anybody gets before making this kind of commitment that lasts for the rest of your life, or they come from past experience and how it worked out. And yeah, Peter's bachelor party, it has to be one of the more depressing things. The only people turning up are the guy who bullied him in high school and Harry Osborn. You know, the guy who tries to kill him with pumpkin bombs because Peter killed his father, who killed his girlfriend, who would probably be the person that he had married if his father hadn't killed her. Yeah. Although this seems to be one of those times. Yeah, although we're in the middle of one of those eras where Harry isn't the Green Goblin and doesn't remember any of that stuff. Yeah, if you thought that stupid amnesia plotline from Spider-Man 3 was just something thrown together by the screenwriter, the studio, or Sam Raimi, no, that was lifted from the comics. never too fond of it myself. I was like, good night. They can't decide. It's like they couldn't decide whether they wanted Harry to go full villain or not. So sometimes he'd be full villain, and then they'd flip a switch and boop, he's nice. He's Peter's friend, and at this point he's married to Liz Allen. So yeah, and it turns out Flash is divorced because he blew it. He messed up something. Then we're on the same wavelength. You're saying marriage is a mistake. Hey, I didn't say that. I think about being married all the time. My foul-ups have only made that kind of happiness even more desirable, more precious. And if you get a chance for that, buddy, you darn well better go for it. Yeah, sorry, some of the print is runs together on the digital copy of this. So if I'm slipping up, it's because it's a little hard to read it. But again, another slap down to one more day. But do you love her? Well, yeah, desperately. All right then, settled. Meanwhile, Mary Jane is at her party, and pretty much everyone is trying to talk her out of getting married. And it's a lot flashier than Peter's. And then she gets a telegram. Wish I could be there. Stop. Had to fly to LA yesterday for retakes. Stop. Back late tonight. Stop. We can still catch the 4 a.m. Concorde. See you then. Stop. Full stop. Bruce, will you ever stop? And do I want you to? Problem, NDA? You look so serious. Serious? Me? You're not talking to Mother Teresa, Tom. This is Mary Jane Watson. Let's party! So Peter goes in and, yeah, he has a nightmare. Basically, he's in there and a bunch of heroes, including 4 with the giant winged helmet, a bunch of superheroes are attending. Although the Lizard and Hobgoblin and Craven, yeah, instead of bride and groom side, there seems to be a allies and villains and arch villain section. Although I'm not sure what section Doc Ock belongs in, since at this point he was clearly in the arch villain section, but he's been kind enough to put his differences aside to play the organ. To play the church organ. I'm sorry, but I just saw that the other day while reading it, yesterday while reading this, and I'm just like, that just gives me the giggles every time I see it. Doc Ock played the organ, and then all of a sudden Gwen pops in. She disappears. And then all the supervillains attack, and they go after Mary Jane. And just as they're closing on her, he wakes up screaming, bolting straight up. And as they said on the Simpsons commentary, I don't think several Simpsons commentaries, I don't think anyone's ever done that in real life. I don't think it's physically possible. Meanwhile, Mary Jane leaves her party and she gets picked up by Bruce again. Meanwhile, 3:30 a.m., Brooklyn Bridge. I have to make a decision, Gwen. I swore you'd be my girl, always, and here I am about to marry someone else. But I love Mary Jane. Of course I love you too, and you died because of it. But it was your choice to be with me, wasn't it? You never complained. Oh, Gwen, I don't know what to do. What's right? What's fair? Help me. Timid light brightens the eastern horizon, slowly grows bolder, but no answer comes. And again, I love the fact that it has these quiet moments. I wouldn't complain that there's not enough action in this comic, but these quiet moments are being done so well, And again, it's making it clear it's not the marriage to Mary Jane that's disturbing him, but as I said several times before, it's the fact that Gwen Stacy's death is only a few years past in his time. So the next day, there's a the wedding is there at they get to City Hall for the wedding, and Javis is there, and everything, and Mary Jane shows up in a Ferrari and dashes out. "I'm afraid Peter isn't here, dear. He's not?" And after that scare, "Sorry, I'm running behind. I had a little trouble getting dressed and I am wall crawling with my shoes on. Well, being late is fashionable, so I forgive you if you're ready now." And so we get to the climax. They exchange vows, and I now pronounce you husband and wife. And the only thing that can undo this is a stupid editor who doesn't believe characters should age and thinks characters in their 30s should act exactly the same as they did when they were 16. And so a short while later at a nearby restaurant, after suitable rice has been thrown and congratulations and kisses have been liberally distributed. Eat, drink, eat, drink, and be merry. Be merry. The Daily Bugle is proud to sponsor the reception. Why? I'd want you to have a good time, even if this shindig wasn't fully deductible under the new tax laws. Enjoy! This sort of no shame behavior where Jameson really doesn't have any shame about who he is why he's one of my favorite characters ever in comics. It's kind of like, in a way, he's kind of the same. He kind of comes from the same mold as Mick on Legends of Tomorrow. He is who he is, and he just lets you know exactly who he is, and he's not ashamed of it. Peter apologizes that he doesn't have the money for him to go on a honeymoon, but Mary Jane has found a suitable way to punish that stalker who was showing up and picking her up after midnight, just hours before the day of her wedding. And that is, she took the two airline tickets and the invitation to use his private villa in France. Of course, it's also set up so Peter can have an adventure in another book that takes place in France. But yeah. Was a wedding present from a friend. Seems he wasn't going to be using them after all. Well, that'll learn him. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, as a checkered cab pulls away from the entrance of 410 Chelsea Street. Yeah, I bet you didn't know if the exact address of Peter and MJ's apartment was ever given in the comics. Heck, I've been reading them all my life, and I couldn't remember that. This is the only time I can think of a exact address being given. And then Peter and MJ are happy, of course, doing other newlywed things like unpacking and thinking about what to fix for dinner are going to seem sort of mundane after that honeymoon we had. Wow, what an adventure! Read all about it in Spectacular Spider-Man Annual number 7. Yeah, and if you go looking for that, don't bother. I can't find it digitally anywhere, and it seems, yeah, although you seem to be able to get it in paper, but I couldn't get it in time to add it to this review. However, one thing I will point out is that if you look for it as Spectacular Spider-Man Annual or under Spectacular Spider-Man, you won't find it, because the actual book name, Again, getting titles confused here. And this just shows when you have too many books devoted to one character. It's when the editor can't keep track of which book it's in. The actual book is not Spectacular Spider-Man, Annual Number 7. No, it's Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, Annual Number 7. So bear that in mind. After 2 weeks in that fabulous villa, what the heck are we doing in a dump like this? That's easy, Tiger. We're doing exactly what we would be doing any place. Living happily ever after. Nuff said. Okay, this comic is great. I know some people would disagree with me on that, and if you don't like the marriage, but you won't like it. But if you haven't told by now, if you haven't been able to tell by now, I'm actually kind of partial to these comics that explore character as much as I am to the action comics. Oh, I love action comics. I love comics that are wall-to-wall action. I love epic storylines where all the heroes get together to battle a great evil or just survive, like in Secret Wars. I love the event Maximum Carnage. I gobbled that up. I gobbled that up as a kid, and I love that kind of stuff. But this type of slow burn, explore the character stuff is really great too. And it shows the real issues that come up, and it slaps down any argument against, in my mind, any argument against Peter MJ being married, or that it's a bad idea to show a married Peter Parker. And even without all that, it still is just a great groundbreaking issue that changes, that without a huge battle or a universe collapsing or something like that, or a big supervillain, changes things up to the point where it will never be the same again. And that's why I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. A great issue and well worth reading. It can be had fairly, if you can't find it online, if you can't find it in paper form, then you can find it fairly cheaply on Comixology or Marvel's website or the Kindle store. It's well worth checking out. I summarized a lot of stuff, so yeah, enjoy.